My name is Mina Chen, and 48 hours ago, I was told that my voice didn't belong in this building because of the way I pronounced the word justice. Today, the man who threw my belongings into a cardboard box like they were common refuse is realizing that while he was busy mocking my accent, he was standing in a room owned by the man who calls me his queen. It is a strange thing to be treated like an invisible ghost in a machine for years, only to return as the one who holds the power of life and death over a person's entire career. They say that in the concrete canyons of New York, you are either the predator or the prey, but they forgot about the third category. The woman who waits, works, and wins because she has a wolf at her side. I moved to this city from a bustling neighborhood in Guangzhou with nothing but a degree in finance, a suitcase of dreams, and a heart full of hope. To the people at Sterling Global, a high-stakes investment firm where the air is thick with ego and expensive cologne, I was just the girl at the front desk with the difficult name and the quiet eyes. I worked twice as hard as anyone else, arriving before the sun touched the glass skyscrapers, and leaving long after the cleaning crews had started their rounds. I kept my head down, my desk perfect, and my dignity intact. I believed in the American dream, the idea that if you are indispensable and flawless in your work, you are safe from the storms of corporate spite. But I was wrong. I was only indispensable until someone needed a scapegoat to cover their own tracks. My manager, Robert Vance, was a man who measured his worth by how much he could diminish others. He was the kind of man who wore $3,000 suits to mask a 10-cent soul. He hated that I was efficient. He hated even more that I didn't flinch when he barked orders or made jokes about my heritage that weren't jokes at all. He saw my silence as weakness and my accent as a lack of intelligence, failing to realize that speaking two languages is a sign of a mind far more flexible than his own. For 2 years, I endured his petty cruelties and his snide remarks, saving every penny and going home to a world he couldn't possibly imagine. A world of quiet power and absolute protection. The incident happened on a humid Thursday that felt heavy with the scent of an approaching thunderstorm. A high-priority physical file had gone missing, a master contract with original signatures that meant $50 million in commissions for the firm. It was the kind of catastrophe that ends careers and bankrupts departments. Robert didn't check the digital audit logs. He didn't review the security cameras. He didn't even check his own locked briefcase. He simply saw a golden opportunity to rid himself of the outsider who made him feel intellectually inadequate every time I corrected his spreadsheets. He walked to my desk in the middle of the morning rush, when the lobby was filled with New York's elite clients, international partners, and the very people he spent his life trying to impress. He didn't pull me aside for a professional conversation. He wanted a public execution. "Mina, your incompetence has finally cost this firm more than just time," he shouted, his voice booming off the high marble floors and glass partitions like a gunshot. He reached over the mahogany counter and grabbed my personal bag, dumping its contents. My modest lunch, my spare keys, my weathered notebook filled with financial observations, onto the floor for everyone to see. "Maybe if you spent less time trying to understand our language and more time filing, this wouldn't happen. You're fired. Get out before I have security drag you out like the trash you are. We need people who actually understand how real business works in this country, not diversity hires who can't find their own feet." He laughed then, a cruel nasal sound, and mimicked the way I thanked him for his coffee earlier that morning, twisting my vowels into something ugly and distorted. The humiliation was like a cold wave crashing over me, a physical weight that made it hard to breathe. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream or beg. I knelt on the cold marble, gathered my things with steady, deliberate hands, and walked out. I knew exactly where that file was. I had seen Robert's own assistant accidentally misplace it in the restricted shredding bin, but I didn't say a word. I knew that some battles are won with silence, especially when you know that the man waiting for you in the black sedan at the corner doesn't believe in losing. Have you ever been publicly shamed by someone who thought they were untouchable just because they had a title? Tell me in the comments how you handled the heat when the world was watching. I went home to Victor Hale. To the world, Victor is a shadow, a legend told by men who have lost everything in the blink of an eye. He is an American with a legacy that runs deep into the veins of New York's shipping, private real estate, and distressed debt. He is calm, he is powerful, and he is the man who treats me with a reverence that borders on the sacred. When I walked through the doors of our penthouse, he didn't need to ask why I was home early. He saw the smudge of dust on my coat from the office floor and the terrifying stillness in my eyes. Victor didn't erupt in a mindless, loud rage. He is not a man of petty threats or histrionics. He simply put down his glass of aged scotch, walked over and took my bag from my hand with a touch as light as silk. He kissed my forehead, his breath warm and steady against my skin.
Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more revenge and love stories. Turn on the bell notification to stay updated.
The building on Fifth Avenue, Mina, he asked softly, his voice a low vibration of pure intent. I nodded, leaning into the iron strength of his chest. He smiled, a thin, dangerous line that would have made Robert Vance's heart stop in his chest. I've been looking for a reason to diversify our commercial portfolio in that zip code. Let's go back on Monday. You have a desk to reclaim, and I have some garbage to take out. The weekend was a symphony of quiet phone calls, digital transfers, and the rustle of legal documents. While Robert was likely out at some rooftop bar celebrating his victory over the receptionist, Victor was moving pieces on a chessboard that Robert didn't even know existed. Victor doesn't just destroy people. He buys the ground they stand on so they have nowhere to fall but into the abyss. He called in favors from the banks, bought up the firm's predatory debt, and acquired the holding company that owned the very lease of Sterling Global. Monday morning was crisp, cold, and perfectly clear. I arrived at Sterling Global at exactly 10 a.m. I wasn't wearing my modest, practical receptionist blouse. I was wearing a tailored charcoal silk suit that cost more than Robert's annual salary, and heels that sounded like a rhythmic, unavoidable countdown on the marble floor. Beside me walked Victor. He didn't wear a mask of anger. He looked like a man arriving to inspect a garden he had just purchased, his presence radiating a gravitational pull of authority. When we reached the reception desk, Robert Vance was there, leaning back and chatting with a group of senior brokers, holding a gold pen like a scepter. He saw me and his smirk returned, uglier and more arrogant than before. Back for more, Mina? I thought I made myself clear. We don't hire your kind back once we've sanitized the office. And who's this? Your big brother come to beg for your job? You're wasting your time, pal. Security is already on their way to toss you both onto the sidewalk. The office staff gathered, some snickering behind their hands, some looking away in genuine embarrassment for me. They thought they were witnessing a tragedy. They didn't realize they were watching a hostile takeover. Victor didn't raise his voice. He leaned against the mahogany desk, looking at Robert with an almost academic interest, as if he were studying a particularly unpleasant specimen under a microscope. Mr. Vance, I believe, Victor said, his American accent smooth, deep, and terrifyingly cold. Who's asking? You got a name, or just a suit your mother bought you? Robert snapped, trying to regain his dominant stance in front of his subordinates. The man who purchased the deed to this building at 8 a.m. this morning, Victor replied. He pulled a slim, black leather folder from his inner coat pocket and laid it on the desk with a heavy thud. And the man who bought the majority of Sterling Global's outstanding debt through 3 different holding companies over the last 48 hours. Technically, Robert, I don't just own your office. I own your career, your pension, and the very air you're currently wasting with your lack of professional decorum. The laughter in the lobby died instantly. It was as if someone had sucked the oxygen out of the room. Robert's face went from a mocking, arrogant red to a ghostly, translucent white. He looked at the papers Victor slid across the desk. The signatures were undeniable, the seals were official, and the name, Hale Holdings, was printed in bold, unforgiving ink across the top of every page. The poetic justice was absolute. The room was a vacuum of sound as every person in that office realized that the receptionist they had mocked was now the woman who held their futures in her hands. Robert, I said, my voice steady, clear, and perfectly composed. You once told me I didn't belong here. You were right. I don't belong at the front desk. But you don't belong in this building at all. You have 10 minutes to pack your things. I've already had security prepare a cardboard box for you, just like the one you gave me. Only yours will be heavier, because you'll be carrying the weight of a ruined reputation that no amount of money can fix. The sight of Robert Vance, the man who had mocked my heritage, my accent, and my soul, silently placing his stapler and his nameplate into a cardboard box, was more satisfying than any shout could ever be. He walked out past the same people who had laughed with him, and for the first time in his life, he was the one who was invisible. The office returned to a quiet hum, but the atmosphere had shifted forever. There was a new air of respect, a realization that the power had moved into hands that knew how to hold it with grace and steel. Victor stayed for a moment longer, his hand resting briefly on my shoulder, a silent anchor. "I'll see you for dinner, Miss Chen," he said with a wink before walking out, his presence leaving a vacuum of authority that I was now ready to fill. I sat at my desk and took a deep, steady breath. My victory wasn't about the building, the money, or the revenge. It was about the fact that I no longer had to hide who I was to fit into their world. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more Mafia love and justice stories. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more revenge and love stories. Turn on the bell notification to stay updated.